History often remembers the pyres, but rarely the sound of a woman's muffled plea in the darkness, a sound swallowed whole by stone. We think we know the Spanish Inquisition, but the true architecture of its terror was built specifically upon the bodies and fears of its female victims. Imagine the damp scent of unwashed wool and fear, mixed with the sharp, metallic tang of impending investigation. They sought not political rivals, but intimate enemies, the whispers in the kitchen, the remedies of the healer, the secrets locked behind domestic doors. The Holy Office promised salvation, yet it delivered an agonizing geometry of severe suffering administered in the name of God's perfect order. You stand in the cold, echoing antechamber of the Palace of the Inquisition, an institution designed less for justice and more for the surgical extraction of ideological purity. The air is thick, stale, carrying the faint scent of charcoal and official parchment, a world away from the sunlit plazas outside. This wasn't merely a court. It was a profound, calculated system of societal control, focusing its immense power not just on heresy, but on the perceived vulnerabilities inherent in the female sphere. The stakes were absolute: eternal soul versus temporal existence, mediated entirely by the solemn, unforgiving men behind the oak table. This journey is not about the flames, but the slow, agonizing machinery that preceded them. We must step softly into these forgotten histories. The real crimson historians, those who sift through the meticulously preserved trial records, find a disturbing asymmetry in the cruelty recorded, especially concerning women. While high-profile men faced immediate political condemnation, female suspects were often targeted through intimate, ritualistic processes that played upon contemporary gender norms. Their testimony, extracted under severe duress, became the foundation upon which entire communities were judged and condemned. These documents, penned in neat, precise script, describe events that strained the limits of human endurance, revealing a deep-seated fear of independent female spirituality and knowledge. The Inquisition saw the female body and mind as inherently susceptible to corruption, making them primary vectors for heresy, witchcraft, and hidden Jewish practices. Therefore, the goal of the interrogation was twofold: to secure a confession and to ritually purify the perceived source of contamination. This belief dictated the unique methods employed, methods often designed to violate dignity and exploit domestic anxieties rather than inflict immediate physical destruction. But this wasn't the end. It was merely the methodical start of a system designed for psychological fragmentation. Imagine the moment you are ushered into the bare, silent cell, the heavy door thudding shut behind you, extinguishing the last vestiges of the world you knew. The walls are thick stone, absorbing sound, light, and hope. A single, narrow slit high above offers a meager shaft of weak filtered light that serves only to emphasize the pervasive darkness. You are isolated, stripped of identity, now only the accused, a vessel awaiting the procedural scrutiny of the Holy Office. The atmosphere is one of deliberate psychological control, establishing a profound power imbalance before the first question is even asked. The methods of investigation relied on patience and systematic application of discomfort. Unlike the immediate spectacle of military justice, the Inquisition's techniques were geometric, precise, controlled, and deeply immersive. We turn now to the infamous processes designed to break resolve without causing permanent, visible injury that would invalidate the eventual confession. The focus was on controlled pain delivery, often stretching across days or weeks, maintaining a thin, dangerous line between agonizing suffering and death. One of the lesser-known yet devastating methods was the ritualized administration of the toca, or water cure. The accused was bound to an inclined rack, a strip of linen cloth forced deep into the throat. Then, large amounts of water were slowly poured over the cloth, inducing a slow, terrifying sensation of suffocation and drowning. The records often omit explicit mention of the accused's gender, yet circumstantial evidence and contextual records indicate its use on women, targeting their innate, biological fear of being overwhelmed, of losing control over their breath. For female suspects, the accusation often centered on domestic practice, midwifery, herbal healing, or maintaining forbidden rituals within the home. The interrogation was structured to turn the very tools and routines of womanhood against them. The tribunals questioned the preparation of meals, the laundering of linens, the use of simple remedies, transforming benign actions into proof of hidden transgression. This systemic distrust eroded the sanctity of the domestic world, turning safe spaces into potential crime scenes. The physical application of duress was rarely done by the inquisitors themselves, but by designated officials, the familiaries or executioners, ensuring a sterile judicial distance. These men acted as emotionless intermediaries, administering the severe suffering strictly according to codified procedure. This ritualized detachment further amplified the psychological terror. The cruelty was administrative, a matter of fulfilling official mandate rather than personal malice. The silence of the assistants was often more terrifying than any shout. Another common ritual of severe suffering was the garrucha, or the pulley. The accused's wrists were bound behind her back, and she was slowly hoisted towards the ceiling by a rope and pulley system, often with weights tied to her ankles. The strain on the shoulders and joints was excruciating, creating sharp, tearing pain that increased with every upward pull. The descent was often sudden, jarring the body. For women, whose physical strength was typically less than men's, the intensity of this method was amplified, creating unbearable pressure on the joints and ligaments. Before the physical procedures began, the accused might spend months in solitary confinement. This absolute isolation was a powerful psychological weapon, designed to soften resistance and distort reality. Cut off from all temporal references and human contact, the mind often turned inward, magnifying guilt and vulnerability. The inquisitors were masters of exploiting this isolation, knowing that a broken spirit often surrendered confessions faster than a broken body. The methods targeting female suspects often included deliberate violations of dignity and privacy, though the specifics are filtered through the safe language protocols of history. These actions aimed to dismantle the accused's self-respect and societal standing, ensuring that even if she survived the ordeal, the shame and public judgment would be inescapable. The goal was comprehensive destruction, spiritual, physical, and social. What came next changed everything. The transition from isolation to the interrogation chamber. The chamber itself was a stage. The inquisitors wore black robes, their faces framed by sharp shadows, positioned slightly elevated above the accused. The tools of duress were often visible: the rack, the cords, the water buckets, standing as silent, menacing promises of what was to come. This careful choreography of light and objects reinforced the absolute, unchallengeable authority of the tribunal, turning the space into a suffocating arena of power. The ultimate aim was not truth, but confession and reconciliation with the Church. Therefore, the interrogation followed a tightly scripted pattern, often leading the accused through a predetermined narrative of transgression. The records show many women, exhausted by severe suffering and isolation, eventually confessed to acts they demonstrably could not have committed, simply to bring the agonizing ritual to a close. In some periods, a combination of sensory deprivation, blindfolding, silence, followed by sensory overload, sudden loud questioning, bright light, was used to disorient the accused. This manipulation of the senses blurred the line between imagination and reality, making the suspect highly suggestible. For the historian, reading these accounts reveals the depth of the procedural cruelty, executed with cold, almost scientific precision. The greatest difficulty in understanding the specific plight of women lies in the archival silence surrounding the most private forms of severe suffering. The chroniclers, being male clerics, often used euphemisms or entirely omitted descriptions of acts that involved sensitive areas of the body, relying instead on legalistic phrasing like applied the necessary means of persuasion. Let us jump forward momentarily, past the immediate moment of collapse. Centuries later, these methods seem barbaric, yet to the Inquisitor, they were sanctified acts of spiritual surgery. The belief system driving this power justified the most profound forms of human conflict and cruelty. Often, the accused was made to wear a hood or cowl, the sambenito, even within the cell. This was a powerful symbolic tool, instantly marking the wearer as condemned, separating them from the community, and enforcing a constant, internalized sense of shame. It served as a constant reminder of the imminent public ritual of judgment. The rack, while not exclusively used on women, was a terrifying instrument of severe suffering. It elongated the body, pulling the limbs from their sockets. If a woman survived this ordeal without yielding a confession, the tribunal often viewed her as possessed by an exceptional, demonic resistance, leading to increased surveillance or harsher, more creative applications of duress. Later, the Inquisition's reach extended beyond the individual suspect. It targeted the family unit. The confiscation of assets and the public shaming often impoverished and ostracized the wives and daughters of accused men, creating a ripple effect of generational suffering. The economic and social downfall was often as complete and devastating as the physical penalty. The sentencing, the auto da fe, was the public climax, a carefully managed theatrical spectacle designed to reinforce the authority of both church and crown. The accused, exhausted and often physically broken, were paraded before the community. The visual display of institutional power over the vulnerable body was crucial for societal retention of control. The intense focus on regulating female behavior, their speech, their movement, their knowledge, reveals a profound institutional anxiety regarding the fragility of established power structures. The heretic woman became a necessary scapegoat, a physical manifestation of internal ideological threats that needed to be ritually purged. Many women condemned by the Holy Office did not meet a public, fiery end, but rather languished in perpetual imprisonment, the carceles, perpetuas. Their stories ended not with dramatic collapse, but with the quiet dissolution of identity within the stone walls, a fate arguably more isolating than the swift public judgment. Consider the weight of the words produced under these conditions. The historians must constantly evaluate whether the testimony is a genuine spiritual statement, or merely the final, desperate utterance of a person pushed beyond the limits of human endurance, seeking only cessation of severe suffering. The documents remain, bound and preserved, a terrifyingly detailed record of bureaucratic cruelty. They speak of names, dates, procedures, and costs, but rarely of the emotional resonance of the suffering inflicted. It is the historian's task to find the faint echo of human terror between the lines of clerical Latin. The shadow of the Inquisition's methods lingered over European society for centuries, shaping laws, medical practices, and especially the societal control over women's knowledge and autonomy. The fear it instilled was pervasive, acting as an invisible hand guiding behavior long after the tribunals dissolved. The enduring lesson is that profound, systematic cruelty is most effective when administered not by monsters, but by meticulous procedure, sanctioned by high authority, and executed with cold, bureaucratic detachment. It is the normalization of the severe suffering that grants it longevity. This video is created for educational and historical purposes. It examines themes of power, corruption, and human conflict without depicting explicit or graphic events. we leave the dark confines of the inquisitorial cells, carrying the weight of these forgotten lives. Their pain, though hidden by careful historical filtering and clerical script, reminds us of the profound human cost when absolute power seeks absolute purity. If this made you question the past, you're welcome to continue the journey with us, always searching for the truth hidden in history's shadows.